Good afternoon to all our stakeholders that have taken the time to join us at the Made in Africa stakeholder launch. Now, many of you might have already noticed the acronym of MIA, which we did have a long, hard think about whether it might be a bit of a tricky one. But here's the reality. Where is our global supply chains on the continent? Where is our large manufacturing concerns that do not resonate out of Europe and the States and other countries? Are they essentially MIA? So maybe there's a good play on those words. Ladies and gents, my name is Debbie Tagg, COO with Smart Procurement, but also the privileged role of co-chair with the Africa Supply Chain in Action. And essentially, when we launched in partnership with SAPICS, and I'm very happy to welcome my colleague, Tanya Lamb, who will be addressing you and welcoming on behalf of SAPICS this morning, or morning, afternoon, depends where you hail from. You've just woken up in the States, it's rather early for you. Give us a thumbs up if you are. And really, we started the Africa Supply Chain in Action initiative last year in a collaborative effort to draw together skills, learning, and the ability to move supply chain on the continent forward. And if there's anything that COVID absolutely opened up our eyes to, was the fact that we could do this in an efficient manner and we could reach every corner of the continent without thinking how we're going to fly and arrange venues. And I do thank COVID for that. And I thank our supporters for helping us launch the ASCA initiative so quickly. And we are truly, truly touched with already what kind of impact it's had. But as many of you may or may not know, Smart Procurement started 8 years ago with the initiative around enterprise supply development. And I don't want to talk too much to those barriers because we will discuss that a little later after we've had our lightning talks. But we realized that we had an opportunity as Smart Procurement with a community base of almost 30,000 buyers just within the SADC area to link small-owned, black-owned businesses. And I say black-owned because that's a very South African element around the Black Economic Empowerment codes that we face here. But really, no matter what country on the African continent, we all want to buy local and support local economic development. But we realized that there was this opportunity to create a bridge and to reduce the barriers for small business and to reduce the barriers for procurement, because there are barriers. And as I said, I'll talk to those a little later. And of course, when ASCA happened, it was no surprise that on the agenda of Africa Supply Chain in Action Conference 2020 was the role that supply chain, procurement, our profession can play in supporting local business. And we look at things like the free trade agreements. There's just so much pointing towards supporting our own African child, as some say in our circles. So it was almost just so obvious, and it almost took over before we even had the thoughts of Made in Africa. And how could we now take what we do in a Southern African region where we link hundreds of local small businesses to buyers on an annual basis and have been doing, well, this year will be our 9th year, in fact. How could we do this on the continent? And again, we don't need to host a physical trade show. It would be great. It would be a great experience. But the reality is we could do this all online. We could now link the ASCA Nation, the Africa supply chain community, online in a meaningful way to these small businesses. And again, learning from 9.5 years of experience of how to do that and how to facilitate and to support the procurement and supply chain community as well as local businesses, and to really facilitate that engagement. So we're really, really pleased that you could make it. And we will talk to you a little later, just before I welcome Tanya. But this, what we have achieved in the South African environment and in the SADC environment, was not done alone. It's a collaboration. And we will talk to that truly effective procuring from SMEs, helping reduce those barriers, again, is a collaborative effort. And that is why you are here, hopefully, to see what role you can play depending what hat you wear in this ecosystem. And we truly look forward to engaging with you through the afternoon, and also are open to your feedback and to your ideas, because this is just the start of the Made in Africa journey. And without further ado, I'd now like to hand over to Tanya. If I can welcome you up on stage. Tanya, if you can switch off.
Okay, I see me, I'm live.
And there was
Welcome, everybody.
Got two blondes here. I don't know why. Just happened to be that. But I promise you the rest of our team are much smarter because I'm not blonde. And I'm not insulting Tanya because she's actually pretty dark. Anyway, Tanya, please, on behalf of SAPICS, I welcome you to the stage.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Welcome to each and every one of you that have taken time to attend the session with us this afternoon. Let's get into talking about Made in Africa, what it means to us, what it means to you supply chain professionals. It's an important initiative, and why? I think that COVID has caught everybody off guard, and this is far-reaching globally. It's not just from an African point of view, and one of the things that's really come under the spotlight is looking at your supply base from an onshore localization point of view. So businesses already in South Africa are going the local route, developing local suppliers and building capacity in that way. So we need to encourage business to do more of that. And as supply chain professionals, the responsibility is on us to lead that initiative and take charge of it. So we know that this is going to be expensive because we buy often, one of the tick boxes is buy cheaper. Yes, there's quality and there's all sorts of other components, but a lot of it's got to do with price. And it's a big negotiation. It's a big reason to make a choice on a product and where you buy it from. But we can't look at that and build a holistic picture. We need to take a step back and say, in the short term, the price is a factor, but in the longer term, how do we change our economic standpoint and build our economy if we're not going to start small and, just bite into it and take the challenge on of building up our local supplier base? The trade agreement, free trade agreement that Debbie spoke about is going to enable a lot more activity within the African continent and help us to build each other. We as an African continent share challenges. We have lots of things to deal with that Europe and the USA and those countries don't have to deal with. And so we understand each other, we get it. And it's in all of our interests as African countries to work together to improve our countries and the lives of our people. Because at the end of the day, what we do now affects future generations to come. We need to start now. We need to stop putting it off. We can't be talking about it. We need to take action. So Made in Africa is also about not missing in action, because yes, that is another abbreviation for it, but basically about making it happen. So interestingly enough, I read something yesterday on LinkedIn, and this is just something to think about. So they're talking about another SAA bailout, and this has been a bone of contention for quite some time now, because the question is, how many times are we going to do this bailout situation before we draw a line in the sand and say enough? So there was a chap that supports SME development. He's quite outspoken about this whole thing, and he had said that if they took that money from the South African Airways bailout and they used it to set up SME businesses, we could set up hundreds and thousands, if not millions, of SME businesses. We could give people the opportunity to start a business, and we could grow our SME base and Made in Africa from there. So that's something to think about. How many other initiatives, opportunities, or things are out there that we could capitalize on to drive our supplier development and our Made in Africa agenda? So I like to talk a lot and I have lots to say, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. But we as SAPICS are very happy to be part of this. We have recognized that SME development and growth is a critical factor to strengthening stabilizing our economy. We need to be doing something, and talking about it's not going to make it happen. So we are really proud to be part of this initiative. We ourselves are putting a stake in the ground and developing our own SMME platform to provide support. So without further ado, I will hand back to Debbie to continue with the program. But please, all of you, just think about what you in your personal capacity can do to make this Made in Africa initiative happen and how we can get it right. So enjoy the session, and I hope to catch up with you all on a table a little bit later. Thank you.
Tanya, thank you for that excellent introduction, and I think just so representative. SAPICS has their finger on the pulse of what's going on in supply chain, and again, you resonated with something that is very important about Made in Africa. We don't want to talk, we want to do, and we're going to get to that part as well. But before we do, I want to give a very big thank you to our presenters and supporters that took the time out of their busy schedules to send these messages of support. And we will be sharing that particular video with you now. I do have a little disclaimer. One of our senior and one of our top sort of supporters of the initiative, and has really encouraged the ASCA team to grow with this idea, is His Excellency Professor Dr. Ambassador Tal Edgars. I take this one, His Excellency, that there's a little thing missing in your title. So please also to note that his role is as ambassador, and that is why he is so pivotal to where Made in Africa is going, and also, again, so integral to the things that he has seen on the ground operating in almost every single African country. But let me not take the wind out of our supporters' sails. So we will now hand over to the lightning talks, and I will see you on the other side of that. Thank you.
Dumelang, Sanbonani, Barigani, Bonjour. I am Professor Ambassador Tal Edgars, Group Executive Chairman at GDSH Consult Group Worldwide. Permit me a moment down an old memory as I recall fondly on the 8th of May 1996 when our then Deputy President Thabo Mbeki sent out a clarion call to the entire world, fondly termed as I Am Africa. Many listened, many heard, many acted, and what made me believe more was that Africa coined every belief I have, anchored my feelings and my identity. Africa matters to me, and it should to me. Made in Africa initiative is bringing together for the first time on the 17th and the 18th of February all policy leaders, government officials, business owners, you name it, right across Africa and the continents, to discuss the priorities of Africa. Why now? Because Africa is not underdeveloped as many would want to think, but we are in an advanced state of decay. We can change that. You and I can change that. I look forward to meeting you and speaking to you on that same day. Kosi Africa. God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, John Karani from Nairobi, Kenya, a firm believer of Made in Africa, by Africa for Africa, an initiative whose time is long overdue. And I think the fact that God has gifted us with so many things here in Africa, a beautiful climate, great natural resources, fertile agricultural land, and minerals, name it. I think Africa is the richest continent. It's incredible why we have not done this before. But it's never too late to do what we should have done. And so it's time to rally around this Pan-African call for a true initiative to support our own homegrown industries. And as I say in South Africa, local is laka. Here in Kenya, we say empowering our SME industry is the future of industry. This is an initiative whose time has come. And I'm a strong believer of this Pan-Africanist agenda. And it all stems from the whole criteria on local comparative advantages, economic advantages that we have across Africa. If we can all collaborate and leverage our God-given resources within each territory, in South Africa, focus on what we do best. In Eastern Africa, we focus on what we do best. In West Africa, focus on what we do best. And then now, finally, Northern Africa. Because we have both the consumption power and the buying power. There's nothing to stop us from having a movement like no other, where we can support our homegrown industries across Africa, support our own homegrown crowds in the region where we come from. Those industries, which can start as cottage industries, can quickly scale up to become global industries. I never cease to think about the case study of South Korea, which started as a small economy. Today, they have more mega giants exporting across the world. We can do it in Africa. It's time for Africa. Thank you.
My name is James Kalopi, Acting CEO for Kenya Institute of Supplies Management. Kenya Institute of Supplies Management is a local body in Kenya that was enacted through an act of parliament to register supplies practitioners, discipline them, and also manage their welfare. I'm here to support this agenda of Made in Africa because I believe the Pan-African agenda is an idea whose time has come. The pandemic that has hit us, the COVID pandemic that has hit us, has taught us that we can have local solutions for our local problems. And I want to urge all Africans to support this program of Buy Africa for Africa so that we can grow our local industries, we can grow our entrepreneurial skills, and also support our own to grow and compete internationally with other bodies in the world. My take to this is all of us have a chance and have a role to play to make sure that this agenda is realized, and all practitioners, all members of African community come together so that we can develop this mission together and build Africa. Thank you very much.
Manufacture medicines and other health commodities that are needed in the continent. Truly, for me, it's about the public health needs and for us to locally manufacture what we need based on challenges we face. It speaks to me because to date, Africa remains dependent on imported health commodities. Even though we have the highest HIV burden, for instance, and we still import almost 80% of antiretroviral commodities into the continent. So for me, Made in Africa is really is so relevant at this stage. Africa Resource Center has always strived to improve supply of local health commodities, essential medicines within the continent, or even in Nigeria, for instance. That has always been our mandate, to improve supply to meet the shortages in the system. So for me, Made in Africa resonates with. When we look at the public health need and the need to bridge the gap of availability of life-saving health commodities, we know that we do need to boost the domestic pharma businesses by engaging them in local manufacture. If you do that, we will begin to address the issues around availability of life-saving commodities in the continent, because it's still a major gap. And also, you're going to boost small businesses in the continent. There are so many small pharma companies that can really go into manufacturing.
Greetings to everyone in the continent, Africa at large. My name is Kiabe Tsumpani, known to many in the industry as Kia. I am the president of SAPICS, the professional body for supply chain management in South Africa. SAPICS is delighted to be collaborating with Smart Procurement on the first ever Made in Africa event. At SAPICS, we believe that community is vital. We also believe in the brilliance of Africa, and we welcome the opportunity that Made in Africa provides to showcase products, to showcase services, available on this vast and varied continent. I urge you to participate and to encourage your colleagues who are sourcing products and services, or who have products and services to offer, to attend this event. Let's strive for economic transformation in our lifetime by Africa, for Africa. I thank you.
I'm so excited to talk about Made in Africa because it is an initiative that promotes By Africa, for Africa. By Africa, for Africa is something that many African free trade agreements have been trying to achieve by enabling trade within Africa. What's the advantage for that? Currently, our procurements from abroad involve lengthy and risky supply chains. And since in Africa we still have a lot of work to develop our skill in running on the supply chain, it is important for us to start local. When we start local, we will have an opportunity of developing Africa, because all the revenue that will be generated from within will be spent from within. We will be able to enable even nations and economies that are weak right now to be able to produce something. So I support the Made in Africa initiative. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kabir Shigaya. I've been running the company for the last 8 years. My company is called Zippy Logistics. I founded Zippy because Made in Africa is something that's very, very important to me. It's a company that helps indigenous businesses have an opportunity to compete with international companies. Especially, we started off in the e-commerce space and started helping people trade e-commerce Made in Africa products on Jumia and Konga and other e-commerce platforms. Then we switched to the supermarket industry, where we realized that there was a huge need for Nigerian companies to be able to come out of the woodworks and compete in supermarkets across the country. Our company currently controls the logistics for close to all the major supermarkets in Nigeria, and we can happily say that we have at least 60% of our vendors have locally produced products made in Africa, which we are helping make sure that get to people's homes on a daily basis. Made in Africa is a very, very, very important initiative, and it's something that needs to be given support to growth, because Africa can be great, Africa can be powerful. Africa just needs to support one another a lot more. We are also looking into international trade, trying to make sure that we push more African products to other African countries, because our Afrocentric approach is what we feel will make us stand out in the market. We look forward to this event, and we look forward to joining you at it. Thank you very much.
Good day, Asker Nation. This is Suzanne, co-founder of the African Circular Economy Network. And I just want to say I'm really excited about the idea of the Made in Africa logo. I think in the context of the African Free Trade Agreement and the whole idea to open Africa to more intercontinental trade, this is much needed. It's great to find out what is truly African. I really do hope that certain business sectors can be revived. I would love to buy textiles made in Africa, that clearly are distinguishable from any cheap imports. So I hope that this logo will provide a measure of quality assurance that would really make Africa a trustable partner for international as well as for continental trade. Good luck. I fully support this. Asian fully supports this.
Pliny the Elder, an ancient Roman author, once said, "There is always something new coming out of Africa." Hi, my name is Al-Marie, and I'm the founder of Clinic with Purpose. In August 2020, in the midst of the global pandemic, I was fortunate enough to be an ambassador for Africa Supply Chain in Action. This was the first time that Africa supply chain and procurement professionals came together online in a response to what was going on in the world. Over 900 senior professionals from across 44 countries on the continent, representing both private and public sector entities, now form a growing community known as the Asker Nation. This community identified a common objective: to harness procurement for African growth, by Africa, for Africa. And it is from this that the very exciting initiative Made in Africa was born. There is no time like now for Africa to unite and change the narrative, work together in building Africa's economy by enabling African businesses. The author John Hemingway said, "If I have ever seen magic, it has been in Africa." And it is for this reason that I am so excited about the Made in Africa event that will take place on 13 and 14 of April later this year. This 2-day high-impact event will bring together the entire ecosystem in which small businesses operate, policymakers, investors, purchasing decision makers, and African businesses will have a chance to meet, collaborate, come up with solutions, and make magic. As a champion of small businesses, I see this as an opportunity for SMEs to reach out across the continent and to expand their horizons. Even if you think you are not ready to do business in the continent, I want to invite you to join us to meet other businesses just like yours, to learn, collaborate, inspire, make friends, be inspired. Hakeem Bello Sagi said, "Remaining where you are in a world that is changing so rapidly is in fact the most dangerous of all places to be in." So join us at Made in Africa. You never know what may come of it.
Thank you to our proud supporters of Made in Africa. You have gotten the ball rolling, and I can tell you that there was lots more videos of support that we received, and we will be sharing those on social media and just sharing them in general because I think it's the right message. I'm also now pleased to take you through a little bit of what does Made in Africa mean. So thank you for the votes of support, but I think the question is, we said it's a doing, and so what is the doing that we're inviting collaborators to consider? We can, if everyone can see the presentation there, so thank you to our content manager. If we can go to the first slide after this one. So Buy Africa for Africa, as I said, is not just a dialogue. It's not a talk shop, and it's not just another event. Its core objective is to ignite a movement that will enable buying local by linking stakeholders. As Almarie said in her presentation, the ecosystem, bringing buyers, sellers, investors, and policymakers. And in fact, also probably missing in that sentence there is those that enable SME development and sustainable small business. Essentially, what we want to do with your collaboration is reduce the barriers. Go to the next slide. So what does that mean? And maybe it's important at this stage, I spoke about it in my introduction and welcome, what are those barriers? And I'm probably preaching to the converted. I've seen who's here so far, and many of us have had direct conversations around this, but we know, if you put your procurement hat on, for those from purchasing and procurement and supply chain that are here, it's not standard practice to procure from SMEs. If you look at the international benchmarking, we're not actually taught how to do this. And it takes a very unique skill set in order to work closer with small businesses and to help them succeed as supply relationship management skills are needed. So this is very different to your tier one suppliers. Secondly, where to find them. Again, it's not typically you can just pick up a show guide or a directory and find them. So how do we reduce that barrier? And risk. Interestingly enough, in a very recent survey that Smart Procurement participated in, 2 of the key areas that procurement said are going to be important. One is minimizing costs, and I really think that is hugely driven by what's happening with COVID and what we're seeing in the economies. And the second is risk management. And here we are also calling on our procurement profession to buy from certain SMEs, but yet they're also risk averse. So how do you facilitate that? And then the second there, of course, is minimizing costs. Is it more costly to do business with small business? And sometimes that could be a misconception, but also sometimes a reality. And as a small business, and please, I see the chat is really not doing much there, so go and add in your questions and your comments around what we're saying. But as a small business, if I want to go into Ghana or Kenya and go into a new market, or even into South Africa, the other way around, what are the country-specific factors that I need to be aware of? How can I navigate it without burning my fingers? And that is one of the areas that we want to see how we can support better. Also, how to engage procurement. Selling and engaging a procurement manager in a large organization is very different to selling to the business next door. And again, where do I even meet these buyers? We can go to the next slide. What we'd like to talk to is how Made in Africa will work. So really, it is first of all, a launch, not this launch. This is the Get Support launch today, but really it's a conference and a showcase that will be hosted on the 13th and 14th of April. It will have a dedicated online event platform and most importantly, a linkage program. And what do we mean by the program? So with our stakeholders, we've really given deep thought as to what would benefit the most. And again, we don't want this to be a talk shop. I think there's so much content out there, what really is going to be useful. So we will look at policy and regulation, and maybe at some point it may influence policy and regulation, but to be honest, we don't really want to go down that road at the moment. What we want to do is rather help small business and procurement navigate what is enabling doing business with small business, and also how to avoid certain pitfalls. You can see it's only middle of the week. Right, and then that would be for all. That's all stakeholders, that's for small business, that's for buyers attending will gain exposure to those certain aspects. And then we have our How to Do Business in Africa track, and that really is targeted for our small businesses. I suppose perhaps also for procurement if you would like to attend. But really, that's just, the how-tos and what to avoid and to really be aware of certain barriers and certain opportunities, tax breaks, etc. And then we look at procuring from small business. And that's a track that I'm very passionate about. Again, just how do we enable the procurement professional, the buyer out there that might have good intentions to do business with small business, but not necessarily the skills and the tools that are readily available. We will obviously always look at things like access to funding and just some typical how to small business issues. And again, very practical, very tool-based. And one of the areas which will be integrated through all of this is really the importance of supply chain. And I refer back to the partnership and the support of SAPICS, who have been part of founding Made in Africa, because if you are going to grow your business across the continent, be it in the manufacturing concern, possibly less from a services side, but really from a product side, do you have best practice for your small business around supply chain? And we know even big business still struggles with that. And then really alongside of that is the virtual expo, to some of our big supporters, and the supplier matching. And that's where smart procurement gets involved. We've learned a lot over the years, and that is going to be most important around the impact. We want to walk away from 2021 Made in Africa and know that we made a difference. We can go to the next slide. After the event, what can you expect? So 2 days is a tall ask for business to connect wholeheartedly. So the great thing about online is it's not that you return back to your home countries and it's business as usual. Actually, it's business unusual. So you now get to extend your experience and the opportunities around Made in Africa for 6 months afterwards. We will host various aspects, but really supply match-up sessions. These are things we do very successfully online. Webinars, discussion forums, and we want to create that sense of community for small business and buyers that you can engage post the actual online live event. And I also then highlight towards the end or the last bullet point, not the end, is again that supply chain for small business. And we have amazing programs that are available online as well. So the question is, who should attend? We can go to the next slide. Our first stakeholder, and I see there's a couple of representatives, is your SME business. And when we say SME, we're not talking really startups. We welcome startups to come and attend. But in order for this initiative to work and to support sustainable local businesses, we are looking at businesses that have been operating for 2+ years. They're looking to grow into new markets across the continent, and they already, should they meet a procurement buyer or have that certain access and opportunity, that they're almost ready to go. And that is the kind of small business that we are looking to host as part of Made in Africa. So there is what we call an SME Made in Africa access package. And if you do the numbers for those of our local partners, they'll see that this is actually quite a low investment per SME. But again, the fact that it's not a physical and that we're narrowing it down in terms of facilitating the meetings. The point is to make this affordable as well, whether they are self-funding or whether they're being hosted by an organization. So if I'm a small business and I'm coming to Made in Africa for that fee, yes, there will be a local sourcing director that when we say is distributed over 50,000 professionals, that is the network that you're coming into through the partnership of SAPICS, through Smart Procurement World, and through the Africa Supply Chain in Action. Again, the 2-day event access, facilitated introduction. So again, we'll be asking small business as they come into Made in Africa, who do you look to buy from? Who would you like introductions to? What is your sectors that you work in? And then our SME team jump in, get involved, and facilitate that. And then there's those 6 months access. And that really creates so much opportunity to continue engaging. One of the things we've also learned is that it's not just about doing business with procurement, it's also doing business with each other. And Made in Africa will look to continuing that enabling interaction between the small businesses. I think as we stand, we already have commitment. We'll see if Keshini there's on the chat. I think we already have 150 small businesses that will be attending and being showcased at Made in Africa, but our target is much higher than that. So who else should attend? On the next slide, you can see that, before I jump, sorry. Important, what works and has worked for our more local initiative of this over the last 10 years is that small businesses are actually supported and hosted. It can be incubators, business chambers, government programs, and in actual fact, what works the most successfully is corporate institutions that as part of their supply development, or sometimes even the enterprise development programs, they will host some of these suppliers. And if you put your hat on as a corporate institution, and I'm very glad to see a number that are here as chief procurement officers, that imagine the success and the maturity that you can create in a supplier when they start to do business with more corporates and when they also start to expand their experience and their learnings by going across the continent. So again, you're adding extra value, you're creating market access for them, making them more sustainable. And no business is going to grow if it only relies on one customer that it services. Again, impacting your existing supply initiatives. And as I mentioned earlier, we also encourage small businesses, they can fund themselves for the program. But we encourage a lot of these programs, please, to consider adding value to what they already do and really creates extensive market access for your small businesses. Now we can go to the next slide, which then talks to, well, who else should attend? So part of the ecosystem, we've got our small businesses, but who do we need is the buyers. And we've created quite a bit of value for buyers. First and foremost is really to support the Buy Africa initiative. Come to the event. There's no cost. We just want your time and your commitment, and we see how this has worked in such a phenomenal way with a local event, which we have 3,000 attendees that attends in a physical environment at the Enterprise Supply Development Expo. We are not limited to those numbers online. We will work with you. So by attending, what you do is you tell us what your sourcing needs are, where do you typically procure, and we will pre-match you to the verified small businesses and local businesses that are part of Made in Africa. Also, as I mentioned earlier, we have a dedicated learning track that will talk to global best practice. How do you approach dealing with small businesses and procuring from them? And one of the areas that there's been a lot of experience around is in the South African environment because it's legislated. And many of our procurement stakeholders that are here, and they're very, very quiet here. I'd love them to put a note in here and to talk to possibly what they've learned and what the benefit they've derived being part of an initiative like that locally, and like Made in Africa that's been held locally, that has helped them overcome the barriers to doing more business with small business. So also we invite our buyers to come and network with your peers. And what would we be if we weren't talking to continuous professional development? And yes, definitely that will be an important part of attending as a buyer. And the more the merrier, definitely. Okay. And the next, last but definitely not least, we do invite our policymakers, our government stakeholders and investors, anyone that's really driving the Buy Africa and local content agenda across the continent. So come and see what businesses are there and make your contribution. And really, by invite only though, we will be inviting you to the policy and regulatory breakaway sessions. We also hope that Made in Africa is an opportunity to hear from the bottom up as to what are the challenges that small business has and that procurement has, and how can we as policymakers really facilitate initiatives that can overcome that. I'm very disappointed in the chat. I feel like we left you to Keshni and all. So unless you're leaving the questions until later when we get to the round tables. So really, if I look at the last section, we also invite, please, for SME Enabling Services. If you can just move over to the next slide. What do we mean by that? And that really is any organizations. Think around a Microsoft, a LinkedIn for Business. We always start with financing, and if we think around the 3 areas to support small business, we've covered market access, and that's really, really where Made in Africa is going to start, is that market access and facilitating it. But what about business development support? How can we help small business navigate doing business across the continent? We spoke around a supply chain best practice, but what else can you offer? Do you know about that you can be part of this? And then access to finance. And we know that is always one of the big challenges. So we are inviting our supply chain financing organizations, our bank organizations to come and facilitate and showcase what kind of funding is available. Yes. So do you meet any of those lists? Please let us know, because we want you to be part of that. And if we can go to the next slide, we want you to spread the word. Is it a tall ask? Possibly, but we can only achieve scale and impact quickly by getting this into our networks, being part of Made in Africa. One of the interesting positions around Made in Africa is that we want organizations to use this logo. We want you to put it everywhere. There's no license on it. In fact, our creative team have done some great work. You'll see that coming out, where if you have a blue logo, please have a blue Made in Africa. We just, whatever you do, whatever your activities are, how do you support this local agenda? And but again, coming down to, we want action. We don't want to be MIA. We want to make it happen, as Tanya said earlier. So we invite you now. There's not too many, well, there's no questions. I presume you're waiting to engage us in the breakaway rooms. But we want you to be involved, share your networks. There is something for everybody, whether you have some dedicated funds to this or you don't. Just come and be part of this. And it's the same around Africa Supply Chain in Action. So host your suppliers, sign up your procurement teams. It's very encouraging when we see organizations that make procuring locally part of their KPIs. Have you done that? You know, don't wait until it's a legislative compliance issue. There's many research, that's not great English. There's great research that shows that if you do procure locally and you do it properly and it's not a compliance activity, you can actually add great value to your supply chain and you won't be caught with disrupted supply chains. Look what happened with COVID. We just did a survey, I mentioned the survey earlier. 83% of procurement people, this was a South African-based survey, procure from South Africa. And the next level was Europe. Africa was not even 5%. How do we change that? How do we not get caught out again when we can't import and export from globally? We should be importing and exporting in our own continent. So, also we talk about what are your sourcing needs. We want to know all this. I thank you for listening to the how-to and what is the ask at Made in Africa. We invite you please now to come and join our certain representatives. We have 3 tables that if you click on the left-hand side on the stage, you'll see that there are 3 sessions. Please come and join the one relevant to your profile. So be that whether you wear the procurement hat, whether you wear the SME hat, small business, entrepreneurship, or whether you are also excuse me, on the policy and regulatory and enabling side. And we look forward to engaging you and to seeing how we can very quickly move together to bring Made of Africa to be successful for its first year. And I do again just want to thank our partners and our supporters in those videos. I know if I list everyone, I'm going to forget someone, so I'm not going to. Otherwise, I get myself in trouble, which I normally do quite often. But again, thank you to SAPICS for your undying support on this, and to Africa Supply Chain in Action, which is not just made of, yes, it was an initiative started with the thought process between SAPICS and Smart Procurement, but KISM, CILT, and there are many other organizations. And again, I'm going to get myself into trouble for not mentioning them. So I want to thank you, and I look forward to seeing you in the sessions. And then please feel free, there are tables in the lounge area. Once we finished with the roundtable discussions and engagement, we will keep the platform open, and feel free to go and network and see us here. We have over 150 stakeholders that have joined us. So yeah, there might be someone interesting that you want to speak with. I do see there's one question. Have you considered to create a platform where local products can be procured online? Well, Devin, I think that's a fantastic question, and maybe that is Made in Africa 2.0. We want to be part of that, and we're calling on support. We have the vision, we have some know-how, but we don't have all the answers. And wherever we can support that, and if it has to Made in Africa become something like that into 2022, we are 100% behind it. So yes, I will see you all in the roundtables, or not all, because it depends what hat you're wearing. I will be in the procurement roundtables. Tanya, I saw you had camera on, but thank you again. And without further ado, click on the left and choose your roundtable. I'll see you there.